In a certain part of Academy City in the middle of the night, a white-haired boy known as Accelerator is filling his shopping cart with an unusually excessive amount of black coffee cans. After getting outside of the store, he is met by a group of delinquents who tries to attack him, though obviously to no avail. He mentions to himself that since his defeat in the hands of Toma, he is no longer considered the strongest in Academy City, even though his powers still remain and that he is still a level 5. While walking, he passes by a certain apartment complex and is annoyed by the noise created by two certain characters. He uses his vector powers to mute out any sound from him as he continues to walk alone. However, unbeknownst to him, he is being followed by someone. After a while, the person comes close enough to him for him to notice and uses his vector powers to unmute sound. With this, Accelerator discovers that it is from a voice of a little girl who calls herself Misaka twice. Annoyed by her, Accelerator continues to walk along, ignoring the girl, though she continues to try and talk to him, telling him that she has been trying to get him to notice her all this time. Suddenly, Accelerator remembers the name Misaka. Accelerator removes the cloth from the girl himself and sees that the girl is completely naked, making her cry. The girl says that she is the 20,001st clone to be produced for the Sisters Project and says that her codename is Last Order. She continues by saying that since the experiment has been nullified, she was apparently released from her tank in the middle of the incubation process, as is the reason why she appears so small in comparison to the other clones. Last Order states that since Accelerator has connections with the researchers, she could use him to contact them for her. Accelerator gives an immediate response to her that he is not interested, which somewhat disappoints Last Order since she has nowhere else to go. Apparently feeling sorry for her, Accelerator lets Last Order follow him to his apartment building. When they get to his room, they discover that Accelerator's room has been trashed. Still uncaring and yet somewhat expecting of this, Accelerator lays down his purchases and proceeds to sleep on a relatively intact couch to rest. Last Order, happy, goes and lie on Accelerator's surprisingly intact bed and warns him not to touch her in the middle of the night, much to Accelerator's annoyance. Morning shines through the curtains of Accelerator's room as he awakens from his slumber. Here he discovers that Last Order is still in his room and is hungry, asking Accelerator to cook some food. Accelerator and Last Order go to a restaurant for their breakfast. While Last Order happily asks herself what meal to get, Accelerator notices a person in a white lab coat outside of the restaurant parking lot. It is Amai, according to Accelerator, who is wondering what he is doing there. Amai notices Accelerator's gaze and quickly gets into his car to try and vacate the premises. While eating, Accelerator reminds Last Order of what he did to the clones. Hearing their conversation turning serious, Last Order stops eating and responds to Accelerator. Last Order states that since she is connected to all the clones, she of course knows. Last Order states that she was taught the value of being a clone, and even if a single clone dies, there's no way the entire Misaka network would disappear. Last Order says that without Accelerator, the experiment would never have been proposed and that souls would have never been injected into the lifeless Misaka clone, and she thanks Accelerator for it. Thinking that Last Order is joking, Accelerator smirks and reminds her that he enjoyed killing the clones. However, Last Order counters by saying that Accelerator is lying and says that Accelerator didn't want to do the experiment in the first place. Accelerator gets mad at her observation and says that the fact that he kept continuing with the experiment means that he thought nothing of the clones' lives. Accelerator stands up to leave. However, after turning his back, he discovers that Last Order has been overcome with something. Last Order states that she in a condition where her body is incomplete as such her current condition. Accelerator walks in familiar places for a while and arrives at a research institute. In a dimly lit and messy room with several computers running sits a woman. She reminds Accelerator that he didn't need to break down the entrance as his ID card is still valid. Accelerator later asks Yoshikawa Kikyu where the experimental body adjustment manual for the sisters is. Accelerator asks about Last Order. Kikyu explains, saying that the special experimental instance known as the Last Order. She states that Last Order was never made to be a part of the experiment to begin with. The point of the sisters was to be killed by Accelerator, and that it requires having 20,000 battles for the experiment to finish. Kikyu continues and says that Last Order is not part of the experiment, but is the command center of the Misaka network, and is the reason why her development has been held up, and why she took care of her even after the experiments was terminated. Kikyu, however, states that 7 days ago, someone has overwrote her program with malicious code. Because of the effect of the malicious code, Last Order ran away from their laboratory as a response. Kikyu continues by saying that the virus will activate tonight, which would spread and infect through the Misaka network and will make it go out of control, where they'll initiate an indiscriminate attack against all humans. Hearing this, Accelerator only laughs at the interesting situation and asks who the suspect is. Kikyu states that the most likely culprit is Amai, which surprises Accelerator after remembering his strange behavior in the restaurant parking lot. She tells that there are two things he can choose to do now: capture Amai and force him to talk about the virus structure and resolve the incident, or secure Last Order, who bears the virus in her mind, and put her back into the incubation tank. The scene cuts to Accelerator running in the streets of Academy City, grasping in his hands Last Order personality files. Accelerator arrives at the place. Here, he is told that a man in a white coat has taken away Last Order. Accelerator contacts Kikyu and report to her about the situation. Accelerator asks why Amai would take Last Order if the virus activating would occur even without doing anything. Knowing that Amai is still inside the city, Accelerator smirks and states that humans' actions become more simplistic when they lose their comfort zones. With that, Accelerator cuts Kikyu off and proceeds to find out where Amai. Meanwhile, near an abandoned research facility, a mysteriously out-of-place yellow car sits in desolation. Besides him is Last Order, breathing heavily and having electrodes stuck to her with a notebook computer on her lap monitoring her condition. He pleads to Last Order to be alive at least until after the virus gets activated. Suddenly, an omen of doom appears before Amai. Slowly coming towards him in black and smiling is the Accelerator. Out of sheer terror, Amai tries to desperately start his car. He floors his car towards the still smiling Accelerator. However, it is all for nothing, as Accelerator's powers easily crumples his car, making sure that Last Order is safe in the process. Smiling still, Accelerator taunts Amai, asking how he should play with him. Amai desperately tries to get out of his car, but is stopped by Accelerator, who tells him to calm down. Amai later faints. Seeing Last Order's current state, Accelerator asks if they can stop the virus using only the equipment Amai has. Kikyu, however, states that is not possible, as to overwrite the virus, they would need a specialized incubation tank and a testament machine. During the conversation, however, Accelerator begins to notice a distinct sound coming from Kikyu's line. Here, Kikyu reveals that she is heading towards where Accelerator is using a car, as it would save more time, and reveals that she has finished 80% of the analysis of the virus code infecting Last Order, and that she'll make it by midnight. Suddenly, a voice can be heard from Last Order and starts to speak in gibberish and moving erratically. Almost instantaneously, several warning signs begin to pop up on the notebook computer screen. Concerned, Accelerator asks Kikyu what's going on. Hearing Last Order's ramble over the line, Kikyu concludes that the virus has begun its preparations to activate, and states that the leaked information that the virus will be activating on 12 midnight was probably a red herring. With alarms going off, Kikyu carefully says to Accelerator that he is the only one who is able to save the situation. Kikyu tells him the most obvious and only single thing he could do in this situation: the elimination of Last Order. Suddenly, Accelerator realizes something and contacts Kikyu regarding it. Having Last Order's personality file before the virus infection, Accelerator asks, since he can control brain cells, is there a possibility that he can manipulate Last Order's personality files? Realizing his plans, Kikyu asks Accelerator if he is planning to use him and his powers as a substitute for a testament machine. She tells he can't. Accelerator, however, disagrees with her and states that if he can use Reflect, Redirect, then he can also be able to manipulate and plugs in the USB containing Last Order's data file into the portable digital. Kikyu continues to argue with Accelerator, but he ignores her and throws away his phone. Using the portable digital terminal device, Accelerator completely memorizes Last Order's data file before her infection with the virus, and concludes that he will just simply get rid of all the code in Last Order's brain that doesn't match the previous data file and say that it is a piece of cake. After destroying the portable digital terminal device, Accelerator touches Last Order's forehead. With that, he begins his operation. Accelerator compares the pre-infection date to the data within Last Order's head. However, he realizes that if he gets rid of all the code, then Last Order would be restored to her state the week prior or the week before she met him. He executes the command to destroy the mismatched code using his powers, and slowly the warning messages on the notebook computer disappear one by one. Last Order begins to respond to Accelerator's tampering, as she starts spouting random words and codes and moving erratically as well. While erasing the codes, Accelerator ponders to himself what he is erasing along with the virus, and concludes that it is better for her to forget anyway. Suddenly, as if on cue, Amai regains consciousness and points a gun towards Accelerator, telling him not to interfere. Accelerator is gripped with fear for having a gun pointed at him. He has used up all his processing power in order to delete the virus inside of Last Order's mind, and doesn't have the computational capacity left for a redirection. Accelerator reflects with himself he could take his hand off Last Order as so he can regain the capacity for a reflection, which would then make him invincible. He doesn't, and is shot by Amai in the middle of his work, lamenting on how he was too naive at the thought that he, a villain, could save someone and start all over again. Having shot the accelerator, Amai laughs maniacally for having brought down the strongest Esper with a gun and still living. However, his laughing stops as soon as Last Order announces that the code that Amai injected into Last Order has code break error code. Due to the error, Last Order deems that the processing of the command to be sent to the Misaka network where it would force the sisters to attack humans has been aborted. Seeing the failure of his operations, Amai points a gun at the unconscious Last Order. Angered that his fears were correct, Amai fires the handgun. Suddenly, a hand emerges and manages to protect Last Order, reflecting the bullet back towards Amai's handgun, destroying it and injuring his hand. Writhing in pain, Amai turns his head and sees his worst fears come to fruition. The accelerator has survived and has managed to compute a reflection right before the bullet reached his brain. Accelerator emerges holding the gaping and bleed hole in his head and gives a sinister smile. However, Accelerator finally succumbs to his wounds and falls to the ground. Seeing Accelerator fall to the ground, Amai reluctantly checks his body and concludes that he has indeed not moving and with his powers not working. With that, Amai takes another gun from his lab coat and points it at Accelerator. He mocks Accelerator, saying that in the end he didn't have the ability to finish off jobs just like heroes and states that they are rotten regardless. Then a small gunshot rang out and Amai began to bleed. Here, a woman named Yoshikawa Kikyu holds a small pistol with her. She was the one who shot Amai. Having been shot, Amai falls down once again. Kikyu takes the naked and unconscious Last Order in the back of her car, where an incubation tank awaits her. Amai comes to once again and tries to sit up, however, he sees Kikyu loom over him. She aims and pulls back the hammer of her pistol, ready to shoot to kill Amai. Kikyu continues on by saying that Amai need not worry about Accelerator, as he knows someone special amongst his acquaintances. A person with frog face, though he is called the Heaven Canceller by people, is someone who'd still save Accelerator's life. Kikyu then points her gun on Amai's chest, however, at the same time as this, Amai pulls out his gun and points it at Kikyu's own chest as well. Kikyu regains consciousness and discovers that she is in a hospital of a certain frog-faced doctor, the Heaven Canceller. Here, Kikyu is surprised that she has survived, to which the frog-faced doctor rhetorically asks who she thinks performed the surgery. Kikyu states that she thought that she was shot in the heart at point-blank range, to which the frog-faced doctor corrects her by saying it was actually a coronary artery extending from the heart. However, he states that she was pretty much dead on the spot, if not for the efforts of that kid, the Accelerator. The frog-faced doctor continues by saying that Accelerator has sustained damage to his frontal lobe and has had his language and computational ability affected. Hearing this, Kikyu tries to ask if it affects Accelerator's ability as well. However, the frog-faced doctor cuts her off, saying that making something work that is not working anymore is his policy. Before leaving, the Heaven Canceller asks what she's going to do now as the higher-ups found out about the incident and has finally closed down the research facility, and the experiment completely terminated. She was fired. Hearing this, Kikyu is disheartened that she can't live as a researcher anymore. The winds pass by and moves the curtains of a certain hospital, where a certain white-haired boy wearing a collar is sleeping soundly, while the girl by the name of Last Order is beside his bed sleeping as well. Yoshikawa Kikyu is there, as well as Yamakawa Aiho, the latter asking the former to confirm if they are the ones that she will be taking care of, to which Kikyu says yes. Sometime later, a SWAT team raiding a facility looking for thieves who stole oxygen containers, but they found no one as the thieves managed to escape. Fast forward, the main man is seen standing on a tower and then jumping to land in a hospital in a very sick fashion that made the skirts fly. He walks out as no one's business, but gets stopped by the adorable Misaka. She scolds him for leaving his bed, so he tells her to go away. In response, she ever cutely hugs his leg, and they go to the doctor's office to remove bandages off his head due to being shot in the skull. The SWAT team arrives at the hospital. The policewoman talks to a lady and tells her what happened in the facility and how the thief escaped using a weapon that can cut through almost anything. She also adds the weapon that was stolen. Seems like it's going to be used against Accelerator, and indeed she was right, as a crazy girl arrives at the scene and blows up cars. Then the shorty steps inside the hospital and cuts a man's arm just to send a message that every short girl can be deadly. However, Accelerator looks unfazed as he reads his book while the lady tells him to get out as the girl is looking for him. He says, "No thank you, leave me be." But when little Misaka hears about the news, she runs off to the kitchen worried about her surprise, which in turn makes our boy worry about her safety. Meanwhile, the SWAT team tries to stop her, but their bullets are not effective against her armor, and to make things worse, when the policewomen learn that they are high school kids, she drops her weapon and resorts to good old-fashioned schooling, as she has this ideal to not shoot a minor, even if they are psychopath-wielding weapons that can cut through steel. She sprints and manages to go past the psycho girl, but chokes on her way. They decide to retreat, but when they see the only thing behind them is a room filled with children, they decide to go forward. Suddenly, the guy pushes the redhead away out of the crumbling wall that our boy used as an entrance. The girl shoots her oxygen-cutting gun, but Accelerator deflects them no problem, putting himself on top. But when Misaka appears and runs to him, the roof collapses, so he protects her, opening his head wound in the process. Seeing the bag Misaka is holding has a drop of blood on it, the redhead girl takes it and leaves with the other girl, leaving the lackey behind. Accelerator goes to pursue the girls underground, where he finds them and shows the redhead why he was the alpha in the city for so long. After easily beating them, he returns back to the hospital with the bag, which he learns was a bag of cookies made for him. The next day, we see a group of doctors who are arguably not doctors, as they are killing a girl to study her body. Fast forward 3 days later, and a SWAT team is chasing a girl with the power to reanimate the dead. And as you guessed, the chase ends up inside the hospital our edgy boy is resting in. This girl, unlike the previous one, seems level-headed and expert in hand-to-hand combat. She breaks into Kakashi's sunroom and asks him if he knows the girl in the picture she's holding. Before he looks up, the SWAT team enters the room and catches her dropping the pic. Accelerator later notices it's Misaka. While taking the blondie back to headquarters, it was evident that these SWAT guys are not with the good guys. Luckily, Accelerator went down and ended by reflecting his bullet and throwing Truck-kun at the side like a ragdoll. No iskad for this lad today. He laughs, manically asserting dominance on the other maniac who cowers behind his useless mech, which after getting trashed drops a girl from it, sending our boy to flashback land. Soon after, the real SWAT team arrives and we learn that the girl has been dead for 2 days now and that they were able to use her powers after she died. Later on, we see the maniac informing his superiors about his failure, which leads to his disposal. Meanwhile, the girl returns to Accelerator room to ask him for help. He says no and proceeds to act like a villain. But when the girl tells him that DA, the organization from earlier, wants to use Last Order, also known as Misaka, to further their plan, he releases and tells her to lead the way to their hideout, where she was kept as a prisoner. On his motorcycle, the girl and the white-haired boy arrive at the hideout, where they find the corpse of the man completely dissolved. They also find a giant mech is being piloted remotely by a lunatic guy wearing a doctor cape. We learn that he was able to reanimate the dead by learning the techniques from the girl when she was imprisoned. Then he continues to shame her for her abilities until Accelerator gets fed up and allows himself to be recognized, and then the lunatic decides to retreat. However, before he leaves, we learn that Dr. Lunatic has studied Accelerator abilities and has some sort of plan on how to fight them when the time comes, hinting at a tough battle for our boy's future. Back in the hospital, Misaka enters the room with 3 meals in hand. When she sees the girl sitting beside our boy on the bed, she gets jealous and throws a fit before throwing the food, which leads to the trio going out. Now in restaurant, the 2 girls bond over food while Accelerator makes a phone call to seek info about the DA org. Back inside the hospital, the doctor arrives at Accelerator room to take Misaka to her checkup appointment. The doctor also gives Accelerator a piece of paper he found in the deceased girl's mouth. Blondie identifies it as a lower spell used to reanimate the girl, hence they go to the morgue to bring her back. While doing the ritual, Accelerator touches the girl's brain, allowing him to see all that she went through. The ritual is cut short by 2 fake SWAT men. Unlucky to them, they get their asses handed out by a half-naked dead girl, to then get taught a lesson about true villainy on the hand of Accelerator. Sadly, he collapses mid-lesson due to his unhealed wound, so one guy manages to run outside where he gets confronted by Eye Goggles Misaka. However, her abilities are no match to the guy's weapons. As such, when the blondie along with her trusty dead friend arrive at the scene, a guy takes Big Misaka as a hostage. Meanwhile, on the other end, Accelerator wakes up after the pretty quick surgery to find out that the blondie is not in the room, meaning she's still chasing the guy. He gets approached by another Misaka, who updates him about the situation and tells him that Goggles Misaka has been abducted by the group. Then he gets a call from his lady friend to give him more info about the org. Later on, we find out through a phone call with the lunatic doctor that a high-ranking official who is in the DA organization is fed up with the organization mistakes and their extreme behavior. So he calls a lady to let the kids go, and they are freed after destroying one of DA's hideout while searching for Misaka's whereabouts. Following that, we see the SWAT bros raiding a factory. They engage in a gun showdown with DA's fake SWAT bros. Meanwhile, we see Blondie is still on the chase while Accelerator is still in bed after the surgery, so we go back to the raid location. The DA dogs are panicking as we see them asking the lunatic doctor about the situation of his big weapon. He informs them that he needs the hostage first. As such, they tell him where Goggles Misaka is heading. He thanks them and ends the call, revealing that he is planning to ditch these losers once he has the girl and the weapon. Outside, the combat is still on as the DA men try to deliver the girl to a set location. We also see the 4 kids discussing their next move. After managing to subvert the SWAT team's attention by using a mech, the fake bros smuggle the girl. But then they get spotted by the alpha lady. She chases the main guy and manages to stop their escape. Then the scene shifts to the four menaced kids who are getting closer and closer to the action, entering it with a bang, literally and figuratively. They easily dispatch the big red machine, destroying parts of the hideout and sending the still unconscious Misaka flying. Luckily, the blondie arrives and catches her midair, who in turn gets caught by the half-naked dead redhead. Then the four kids ask them to hand the girl over. They refuse, leading one of the four to transform into a part battle bunny mech. Our boy is seen flying possibly to the location where the bunny girl is sharing her twisted opinions on teachers before being cut by a wild DA lunatic who gets a freezing end, to then turn to the alpha lady. Luckily, the dead redhead jumps in, rescuing her. That said, the fight seems far from easy for the redhead, as the bunny chick is way overpowered, so the blondie steps in, giving the redhead some upgrades with her spells, managing to gain the upper hand. Then they decide to go for the blondie, forcing the dead girl to protect her, sacrificing her arms in a very bloody fashion that we probably can't show. Luckily, the man arrives, saving the day with a kick-ass entrance that not only impresses the blondie, but also the short-haired chick on the enemy team. She offers him a spot, but as you all know, Accelerator is a lone wolf, so he brings the girl to her feet and throws a 5-ton machine on her. She gets saved by the team. Witnessing his power, the team pulls a very impressive coordinated attack, locking the main man in a burning tomb and finishing him, or so they thought, until they hear a voice coming out of the death trap. Yep, the man stands tall. They didn't even burn his cloth or harm a single hair on him. Something I can't say about their situation, as our boy dismantles them easily one by one, saving the day. After the dust settles, the blondie keeps nagging over and over for Accelerator to become her master, which is kinda cute and wholesome, seeing how high they perceive him. She also does that waifu holding the back of the t-shirt thing. Sadly, the wholesome moments ended when 3 mechs descended from the sky. They are being controlled by a half-naked lady who seems very insensible. She snatches Misaka and flies away, so Accelerator pursued, then reaching a rooftop, where now the lunatic doctor is in control of the machines, and he tells our boy that unlike the other ones, these 3 are level 5, same level like him. That said, our boy is rank 1 level 5, meaning although these machines are overpowered, he is the ultimate badass with his ability to control his surroundings. The lunatic doctor has no option but to flee. We learn that the process of downloading the 10,000 Death Misaka clones experience has already begun. It became clear by using this info they are aiming to create the first level 6, and from a flashback episode, we learn that the half-naked girl always standing behind the doctor is his sister, or used to be, as he wanted to make her level 6 so she can conquer her sickness. They brought Blondie along just in case things went wrong. The girl killed herself since her brother was against using her in his research. Then she was brought back using a spell, but she's not really back. The current girl with the doctor right now is very twisted, and the doctor doesn't know she's using him. Anyways, back to the current time, the chase evolves into an aerial battle that messes with the data downloading. On the ground, the police evacuate citizens from the area near the fight. However, they are too slow, as one of the machines destroys a building over the heads of people to slow our boy. After he saves the people and destroys one of the mechas, he flies away, having managed to locate the hideout of the doctor, and although he manages to save Misaka, the data download is already finished. The doctor, like your typical anime villain, tells our boy his plans on how he is planning to turn his little sister into the first level 6 before leaving him to fight once again the 3 mechs. But this time, they are all juiced up with the data from Misaka clone's death. The machines transport him outside, so the process of making the girl a level 6 can start safely. The fight begins, and it seems the tag teaming of the steroid-up machines is a bit too much to handle. On the other end, the blondie arrives at the scene. She tries to stop the doctor by telling him, "It's not your sister, you silly Becca. It's an evil spell that resides in the spell. It's controlling your sister's body." Yet the man with a sister complex doesn't believe her. Back outside, our boy went Super God Saiyan mode, creating a flaming tornado that destroyed the camera of the transporting mech, stopping their tag teaming. And then he turned to the main one, turning its metallic ass into a shish kebab, to then finally destroy the last one in a sick fashion, which the doctor applauds and compliment, while the blondie tries to sneak and separate the dark spirit from the dead sister's body using a dagger. Unfortunately, she gets cut by the doctor, which resulted in him getting the sharper end of the knife, and in the downloading to be successful. The girl wakes up all fine and dandy, freaking the blondie as she doesn't know who's in control anymore. That said, when the girl notices her brother's guts have turned inside out, she awakens her new powers that come in the shape of a big tentacle monster. She then uses her tentacles to cover herself in order to evolve further. Seeing all this, the blondie for some reason keeps trying to convince a man on the verge of death that this being is not his Oni-chan, as if it matters. And when the girl emerges from the cocoon, the guy's smirk turns upside down when it was revealed the girl is not his sister. The being is also not the dark spirit the blondie originally thought of. Turns out the girl's dead body is actually being controlled by the fourth headmaster of her family who, before getting killed centuries ago, bonded his spirit/memories to the spell they used to reanimate the dead, giving him control of the robotic dark spirits that lays in the spells. It is also revealed that he is doing all this to achieve the family-long goal of creating the perfect golem that can counter God himself, and using the empowering machines the nerd made combined with the spell's minor boost as well as the memories of 10,000 death from the Misaka clones, he was able to achieve that goal. The girl tries to talk him out of the idea, but for no avail, as she is talking to a guy in a dead girl's body who has a god complex. It's safe to assume that reason is out of the window at this point, especially after he gets back to the cocoon and ascends in the shape of a tree under the disapproving eyes of Accelerator. Suddenly, the world below loses all colors. Only thing that has color is the tree and Accelerator. Yes, he looks pale as always, but the rage in his eyes complements it. He attacks the person multiple times, resulting in gallons of blood to be spilled. However, it is all useless as the attacks have no effect as the being keeps on regenerating. The being leaves Accelerator with the blondie who is having character crisis while it goes and ascends to godhood. Soon after, through words of encouragement, the group heads deeper inside the building where they find that Dr. Bastard still hasn't given up. He leads the way through shortcuts under the creepy gazing eyes of the BH, who seems worried that they will get to her before the final power-up is achieved. So it decides to attack everyone on sight, realizing that it speeds the process. Now action rams up inside as it's attacking the group with tentacles and dead soldiers, who easily get defeated, but they are way too many and the power-up process is going way too fast now. Also, to make matters worse, Accelerator's power battery is running way too low. When they reach the top, Accelerator feels an overwhelming power they can't reflect or manipulate. This overwhelming power indicates the fourth head of the family has achieved his goal through eating the troops, which immediately proved to be a big mistake as we see taking on their spirits. He also took some of their memoirs and desires, which in turn resulted in a consciousness battle to take control of the body. That said, when the group gets to it, Blondie attacks and the monster acts like the dead sister, tricking her to drop her attack before it scolds her for being too stupid to run the family. Seeing all this, Accelerator talks sense to Blondie, and she gets back at it alone yet again since Accelerator has run out of power. Misaka, on the other end, using her electric power, stops the machine connected to the being, giving the Blondie an opening to jump with the knife. This time, the girls attack and shove it in his heart. His last words were, "Who are you?" Accelerator said, "I'm a villain too, but the difference is I'm a lot stronger." After the big fight ended, the sister appeared and thanked them before passing along with her brother. Suddenly, the thing they are standing on starts moving. The Misaka clone tells the group it will explode, erasing everything in sight, and the follow-up shockwave will destroy the city. So our boy dashes muster the last drop of energy his battery has and blocks the explosion, deflecting it to the sky. He seems dead laying on that lap pillow, but then he moves his lips, bringing joy to the fangirls' hearts. Back in the hospital, Accelerator reads a book before sending Misaka to buy him some coffee to stop her napping. The alpha police lady chit-chats with him while the blondie is hanging in the morgue to release the redhead's dead body, which surprisingly proves to be an emotional goodbye. Ending the series with Accelerator drinking way too much coffee on top of a tower before getting back to the usual business. The end. If you enjoy this video, be sure to subscribe for more amazing recaps.